Hi.
Hi.
So what's today?
Today is March 9th. I had to think about that.
Yeah.
2014.
Okay, and so where are you going right now after this?
Church.
Of course you are. And is there anything else you'd like to say about what you're doing today? Do you have a list?
Yes, I do have a list. Among other items, we're entertaining our son for dinner.
Oh, that's right. Okay, cool. Tell me your name.
Bruce Asper.
And how old are you?
78.
Okay, and so where were you born?
Butler, Pennsylvania.
And what do you remember about Butler? Anything?
Nothing.
Okay, because your parents you moved to?
Well, I grew up when we were in Pennsylvania in a little suburb of Beaver Falls called Patterson Heights.
Patterson Heights, okay. And who lived in your house with you?
Various people at various times, especially during the war, but the ones that lived there most consistently, besides the immediate family, which at that time there were, until Rick was born, there were 4 in the immediate family, were my cousin Corey and his mother, Aunt Peg.
Okay, so Corey, Aunt Peg, and you, your mom, and
My sister, Joan.
Joan. And
Rick was born after, well, at the end of the war, but before he moved to California.
so he was kind of a surprise.
Yes.
How did you feel about that?
Loved having a little brother.
Really?
Yeah.
You changed his diapers?
Yep. Mother taught me how to do all that stuff. Clean, feed, everything.
Your mother taught you how to do a lot of things, right? So what are some of the things your mom taught you?
Cooking. How to organize things, although I didn't learn that one very well. And she was a very good money manager. I wish my dad had let her practice that more often.
But she also taught you how, this is the main thing that I remember, she taught you how to do something about ironing.
Yeah, she taught me how to iron a shirt and how to do it in a very few minutes.
Is that great? She also taught Denny, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
When Danny lived with us a couple of years when we were in college and high school.
Okay, so who is Denny?
Danny's my best friend and our best man.
And so how did he get in the family?
Through me. He came to dinner and things like that. And because of a set of circumstances, and he wanted to go to the same college we went to together, he ended up being invited to stay at our place.
For how long did he stay?
A couple of years.
A couple of years? That was after high school or before high school?
After.
After high school. So you went...
His parents had moved back to L.A.
Okay, let's talk about your high school. Well, I don't know. Do you want to talk about anything to do with Patterson Heights? What was the most fun thing that you did?
Neighborhood games with guys. We had a close-knit group of people. It wasn't a very big area. But we had this neat play field like a block away. And there were probably a dozen of us that played football, baseball, all that stuff.
Okay, and it gets really cold there.
Well, it snows in the winter.
Did you have a paper out there?
Yes, I did. When I was 8 or 9, I can't remember which. Just a little local route, probably 50, 60 customers. I loved it on sunny summer days. It was a morning paper route.
How about the winter?
Didn't like it so much in the winter. It was a Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Did your dad ever help you?
Yes. He drove me around on really brutal days. And by the way, so did Mother occasionally.
Were they encouraging about your getting a job?
Always. If I could earn money, my dad was always in favor of it. One of the ways he got me to go down to the local golf course and collect balls. And originally I was doing it for his older brother who played there when he came to visit. But then it got to be so lucrative from the point of view of the balls that I started selling them at the pro shop afterwards.
How much?
Dime a ball.
Oh, that was kind of expensive, actually.
In those days, yeah.
Yeah. How much money could you make?
Well, it was all net profit, of course, because they were someone else's balls that they were too lazy to shag with. I mean, I'd wait on the little ponds and everything else for it. Oh, I'd probably made a couple bucks a week on it.
So, all right, so then you moved from Patterson. Were you sad to leave New Jersey? No, I'm sorry, Pennsylvania.
It's okay. Geography was never one of your fortes.
No.
Yeah and no. I was excited about our trip west, but you got to remember when we left Patterson Heights to go west, it was to visit Corey and his new wife, Mary Ann, because he was going to college here in California. And the idea was just going to be a summer trip of some extent, probably 3-4 weeks, I think was the plan. ended up, that was the last time I left Pennsylvania, because we were left here. My folks went back to sell the house, and furniture moved and all that stuff. And because Corey had gotten my dad a few interviews, I guess that was a payback. I never thought about it that way for all the nice things we did. And Dad saw how much better the money was out here and how he could be a principal in elementary school for a lot more than he made being a principal in an average-sized high school. So we took the job and we came.
Where did he start being a principal?
Pomona, at Lincoln School.
Yeah, and you started at what school?
Well, when we moved, I started the 7th grade in California. And Joan started the 9th. She was 2 years ahead of me.
And what school?
Same. We both in junior high, Fremont.
Yeah, Fremont.
It was the wrong side of town. That junior high on the wrong side of town.
Yeah. So, but we had a lot of great kids that came from Fremont. All went to the same high school.
Yes, there was only one high school in town at the time. Where you and I met, as a matter of fact, that was Pomona High. And
Fremont and Emerson both were the only...
They were the only junior highs, and they fit in. And those were junior highs, because they were 3-year.
Let's talk a little bit about Pomona. Do you know how many people were actually residing in Pomona when we were there?
In the mid-30s, about 35,000.
Really small town. So, and I know that you had a job. I know that you had a job just like every other guy in town had a job doing what?
You know, even buddies of mine whose folks had money, and there were not many, but a few, worked, interesting enough. I mean, so it was just kind of it was a thing to be done. Well, I continued in the paper route business. My dad made sure that I interviewed for and got a route. I ended up delivering a morning newspaper that's no longer in business, that competed with the Times in those days. And much bigger route. And everybody in our family worked. My mother worked part-time. My dad worked at least, he moonlighted with some job, always doing something. So, and other guys my age and women my age, I think classic jobs for girls was to be a clerk in like a department store like you were, or at a restaurant or something like that, or babysit. And it was very gender biased. The better jobs, pay-wise and every otherwise, went to the boys, got to tell you.
I was actually referring to the really obnoxious job of smudging.
Oh, yes.
So can you tell us just a little bit, because I know the grandchildren will never understand smudging.
Yeah, smudging is difficult to understand, even for some grown-ups who have not been around orange groves. Anyhow, it was a way of controlling the cold temp, especially when what they called the dew point, it was such that it might freeze the oranges, which there were a lot of groves in Pomona at the time. So they burned oil in these smudge pots, and the oil would create a haze over the whole grove, and I might add the whole town, that would keep them warmer. That haze would keep a lot of the moisture, cold air from the oranges, keep them from freezing up. It was brutal work. Classically, you got to work and were called out sometime between midnight and 2 a.m., and you worked all night, filling smudge pots or lighting them or whatever.
So, to filling them, you just put the oil in, and then you lit it, and then you lit them.
You lit it.
Yeah. So how did you look when you came
Only
home?
the grown-ups got the light, by the way.
How long did you sleep on those nights?
Hardly at all, until they called you. You know, so you were, the money was good because people didn't enjoy doing it, obviously. It was a filthy job. If you smudged, you classically had a pair of clothes or set of clothes that you just kept outside in the garage or whatever, because they'd just mess up the whole house. You took them off, and it was hard to get the smudge out of your nose and my eyes and all the smoke and everything. It paid well. It was paid like 3 times minimum wage, which in those days was about $2 an hour.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, no girls did it, right?
No.
And everybody...
Not even the wife of the owner of the Grove.
Yeah. Well, she probably didn't want to. So there was always do you remember that everybody had a...
You could tell who had been smudging.
Yeah.
I mean, well, yeah.
Well, not really. Everybody had
nostrils, and you could see on smudge days. You couldn't see those pretty mountains. You could barely see the sky. And it was just can you imagine the congestion and what got inside our lungs and everything?
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
That's one of the reasons smudging is, they now do it with wind machines.
Oh, do they? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. So you went to Pomona High School, and you were well, tell me about your time at Pomona High School.
Let me see. I was part of a social group that was very active in things. Few of them were good jocks, not me. A few of them were school leaders in student government. And then my role of fame was, by the time I was a senior, I got to be the yell leader.
So was it okay to be a cheerleader when you were
Yes.
a guy?
Yes, it was okay to be a guy and be a cheerleader. In fact, there were 2 guys and 4 girls that we cheerlead.
Did you trade off being head cheerleader, or were you just head cheerleader?
I was head cheerleader. It was a vote of the other cheerleaders.
Yeah. Did you get mad at the audience when they
Yes, and you reminded me of that.
Sure.
The people either loved me or hated me because I'd bawl them out for not making enough noise, not cheering. Like we had rallies every week during football and basketball season.
Yeah, where do we have those rallies?
This beautiful big auditorium that even had a balcony. That's where the sophomores, they call it the shelf, that's where they sat, and then the juniors sat on the wings downstairs, and the seniors got the best seats in the middle. So we classically would have the classes root against each other for noise.
Yeah, yes, I remember that. So what happened at that high school?
It burned down a couple of years after I graduated. And was it 1 year after you graduated?
Yeah. So, and how did it happen?
Arson was suspected and I guess later proven by, interestingly enough, the vice principal, who when they did an investigation of his past, found out that he'd been involved in an arson at another school earlier.
Do you remember his name?
Yes, Churchill.
Churchill. So, okay, so
His first
then,
name was Mr., as far as I know.
what was your grade point at? Yeah, Mr. Churchill. It was shaking usually. So what was, so you decided that you would go on to what school?
I decided that, actually, originally I wanted to go to an Ivy League school, and I was really accepted at Columbia. But I didn't go there. My dad finally let me know that there was no money in the coffers for me to go to any school like that. In fact, pretty much told me that I should expect to pay my own way through college.
Okay.
Even though he was very supportive of me going.
What was your grade point average in high school, do you remember?
About 3.5, 3.6.
Okay. All right, so...
But I did take college prep classes all the way through. They didn't call them honors in those days. You were just in, they had, I think, a letter after the class.
Was it just advanced, maybe?
Yeah, paid for advance.
Okay, so where did you go then after you graduated from high
Junior
school?
college,
Which one?
Mount Sac, which was a great school and a great experience.
Okay, what was its real name?
Mount San Antonio College.
Okay, and from there, and you had fun.
Oh, I had fun. I had great fun at Mount Sac.
Were you a cheerleader there?
Yes, I was. And how much fun that was because we'd travel much further and away games were so much fun.
Yeah.
Plus, I've got to tell you, from a social point of view, cheerleaders and song leaders are almost always buddies because you're together all that time.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say, I didn't want for any female dates.
I see. So you mean, so they got you dates? They
Yes.
introduced you?
Yeah, they help introduce you or set you up even in some cases.
All right. So, all right, so then you graduated from there, and I suspect you had a good grade point average then?
Mm-hmm.
And then where did you go?
UCLA.
Okay, and you spent how many years at UCLA?
Just 2.
Okay, so what did you major in?
Political science.
Why did you do that?
Because I thought I was going to go on to be a lawyer, and that was a good pre-law major.
Yeah, are you sorry that did not happen?
Not really. I have friends, including Dennis, who were attorneys or are, and Michael, who I don't really envy their lifestyle or what they had to work. Their lifestyle was fine. Their careers were, I'm sure, successful.
Were you in a fraternity at UCLA?
Yes. Phi Kappa Psi.
And what was your job there?
I was Hellmaster, among other things, which was the person that put the pledges through Hell Week.
Okay, so what was the worst thing you did during your time as Hell Week person?
Oh. Well, we forced the pledges to do manual labor and carry stuff around and clean up after parties and things like that. And in one particular case, Dennis had gotten a semester behind me for some reason. I don't know what happened. I think he was working too many hours or something.
Didn't he hurt his back?
Yes, while he was being a pledge, he was carrying an extra case of beer empties down the back steps and slipped and fell and hurt his back. And I felt implicitly in charge. Here, my best friend is getting hurt during Hell Week.
So, but what was...
And they had to eat vile stuff and carry around a dead sardine and...
What was the worst thing, though?
Paddling them, I guess, with these huge wooden paddles.
Ooh,
Sometimes raised blisters on there, but
God.
it was brutal.
Oh, okay.
And I was good at it.
You liked it, didn't you? So, okay, but didn't you have another job, too?
Yeah, I was social chairman.
Yeah, and so that included...
Arranging all the parties,
And so
dances.
were the parties great?
They were super. All the houses had great parties. Dress-up dances, I mean, tux and all that stuff, formals. Beer bus on Friday afternoons or Saturday before games or after.
Yeah, there were no chaperones, right?
No,
Or anything.
there should have been.
Right, exactly. Okay, so then, and what was the most fun about just going to UCLA?
Going to the games because they were so well known. And the football team was awesome when we happened to be there. They went to the Rose Bowl 2 out of the 3 years eligible when I was there, and 2 out of 3 times. And in those days there was no repeat rule, which was weird. They would have gone all 3. It was a boring football team, but the scores were low. But it was fun to win. It was fun to have the rivalry with SC, which was a genuine and still is rivalry. Might add, in those days we played at the Coliseum, which was basically on the SC campus. And we shared it. One Saturday was our, next Saturday was theirs.
Okay. Wasn't there a fraternity that was just your rival?
Yes.
And you stole stuff from them?
Yeah, Fiji's.
Yeah. What did you steal?
So much stuff. You're remembering something I don't remember.
Oh, okay. I thought you stole like something that was on the wall. But anyway, that's okay.
Yeah.
So,
We stole each other's girlfriends too.
yeah, that's good. So then you went. Then after UCLA, what did you do?
Went into the Navy right out of college.
And why did you do that?
Well, there was a war going on just before that called the Korean War, which a lot of people forget about. Were it not for North Korea now and their strange world politics, it probably would have been completely forgotten. So there was still a draft, and I didn't have to worry about the draft because if your grade point was above a certain number and you took enough full-time classes, then you were ineligible until you graduated. But I didn't want to be in the Navy, or Army, or anything like that just for a couple of years as a enlisted man when I felt that I could have a better time, frankly, and do better if I served. So you do a little more time, and I served in the Navy as an officer.
So, and what was when you first started, what did you do?
I went through flight training first, and in various places, Pensacola, Newport, Pensacola, Beeville, Texas. Oh, boy, what a crummy place that. Corpus Christi, mostly in the South at naval air stations that were there, frankly, primarily for training pilots.
And so,
when I flew private, single engine planes, I was in what they call the single engine pipeline, and ended up in jets.
Okay, and so how long you were actually in that program?
Just a year and a half.
Okay, and so what did you end up flying?
I ended up flying what they call an F9F, and it was made by Grumman, and it was a jet, and it was not a swept wing. It was one of the last of the straight wings jets, and it didn't do the speed of sound, but it could get there if you could put it in the screaming dive, just so you could say you went through Mach 1.
Well, what did it do? Mach what?
Mach 1.
No, I know, but I mean...
Oh, without going through the...
Yeah.
We cruised at about 500 knots,
Mm-hmm. So, so what was the most exciting thing that you ended up doing?
Landing on a carrier. There was no war going on then, so we weren't really... we flew planes that didn't even have ammunition aboard, let alone the guns to fire them with. And so they were just training us in case, because the Cold War was certainly going on, in case a war broke out. So that there was no excitement in that regard, which looking back on it at the time I wish there had been, but I'm glad there wasn't, because a lot of guys got killed in Korea flying. Anyhow, obviously the most exciting thing I did in both propeller planes, which is the first thing you get to do, land on a carrier. The first time you get to land on a carrier, it's in a prop plane. And then ultimately in a jet, I landed on a carrier a number of times.
How many times do you think?
Probably a dozen and a half.
Wow. Okay, were you scared?
You know, it's funny, they put you through what they call FCLP, Field Carrier Landing Practice, and you go through weeks and weeks of that as though simulating going aboard the ship. But of course, they can't make the ground move because you land on the ground in a pattern, a real tight flight pattern similar to what you come on board. And that doesn't really prepare you for the carrier because, of course, the carrier is in a sea state that's making it wobble up and down, you can imagine. And in those days, they didn't have the electronic eye, which became known as the meatball, which you could glide in on. You were dependent on what they called the landing signal officer, LSO. Everything had an acronym. And you just prayed and hoped you had a good one that would, you watch his paddles, basically, like, and the paddles at the end of his arms were your indicator, lower that wing or whatever. So you had a lot of help, but as you came aboard, there were 9 wires, and the idea was to your tail hook would grab. If you didn't get the first couple one, you had to be prepared to hit that throttle and wave off. And the LSO helped you with that.
Did you ever have to wave off?
Mm-hmm. Almost everyone had to wave off. Sometimes the carrier took a lurch at the time you didn't think it was going to, and stuff like that. And usually it was uneventful. But probably the most scary thing that ever happened is I got what they call a bolter, in which you get the wire, but then you lose it. And I was already starting to shut down because obviously you don't want full power against the wire. And I slammed the throttle forward on the jet, and I took off to go around again, and the power caught a little later, so I was actually below the level of the deck of the carrier by the time I got airborne, and then I came back up around.
You were just in the plane alone, right?
Yes,
Was anybody in
these
there?
were always solos.
Yeah, that was pretty scary, right?
Scary fun. The adrenaline rush when you make it is quite...
Yeah, I bet. So you didn't do that forever, though. What happened?
Actually, they were going to reassign me to multi-engines because there was a need for those, they felt. And I didn't like the prospect of having to fly big birds with a co-pilot and all that stuff. So I asked to be reassigned, and I got lucky. I thought that they'd send me to like ADAC, Alaska or something like that. I asked for Shore Duty Pacific. The trick there was you asked for the opposite of what you thought you'd get. Well, it worked for me. I asked for Sea Duty Pacific. I got Shore Duty Atlantic, Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay, I would like you to make it clear why you were chosen, why you were in the group that was chosen to go into multi-engines.
Well, I had no downs. My record was spotless. That meant starting training all over again in advanced, which would extend my stay in the military. But they only chose because a lot of guys were washed out because they just decided they already had a surplus of pilots. I don't know if that's the whole story, but is there something else?
I just want to make it clear that you were not chosen to go to multi-engines because you were a really bad jet pilot.
I was quite the opposite.
Right.
There were a number of us who DOR'd. They called that drop on request.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so tell me about your time in Newport, Rhode Island.
It was almost like fraternity life all over again. There was a group of photo mates who, I'm not going to describe what they did, it'd take too long for the tape, but basically they really knew what they were doing, and they were all what they call rated, meaning they weren't rookies. And I had 3 chiefs and about 30 guys reported to me. And I learned a wise lesson from both Corey and other people who I respected about their military experience. And that is, depending on the service, let the sergeants/chiefs run the job until they prove they can't, and then get rid of them, get a new one. And don't mess with what's their job. So I called the 3 chiefs in individually, and we had a long heart-to-heart, and they basically ran, and I just signed stuff. So I had a lot of time on my hands. And plus I had a couple of junior officers reporting to me as well, and they did all the tough work. So I just signed stuff, and then I put together, the morale sucked when I got there because the former guy was sort of like he was just a real hard dude. So I gathered together a lot of recreational equipment. We had a lot of extra room in our billet. I made one of the rooms into a rec hall, and we had pool tables and ping pong tables, and we had tournaments, and those were all after hours. But the guys really got into it. So it was good for morale, and frankly, it was fun for everybody, including me.
Where did you live?
I lived downtown Newport, off base, and used my living allowance, which if you didn't live in the BOQ, they gave you towards rent. And 3 of us junior officers rented what had been a mansion, converted into 3 apartments. We had the top floor. We each had our own bedroom. We had a huge kitchen, 2 living rooms, awesome view of Newport Bay. It was not exactly tough duty.
What kind of car did you have?
Very impractical car for the winter in Newport. Boy, was it fun in the spring, summer, and fall. I had an Austin Healey Roadster.
Was that one of the most fun times of your life?
Yeah, it really was. I had basically, on paper, I had a lot of responsibility, but I had no real responsibility. I was old enough to not do too many stupid things, and wise enough to save money for grad school and things like that, but still young enough to have a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky to, I have a couple friends for that to this day.
Really? Who are they?
Well, we don't stay in touch regularly, but like I always think that I could pick up the phone and call Gene Mattias any day. In fact, we stayed in touch, if you remember, the first 5 to 6 years.
I know. And then you got in a big argument about cats.
Yes. I'd forgotten that.
It was funny. Okay, so you stayed there. So you were there for what, 2 years?
2 years.
2 years. And then, do you like the East Coast? I mean, was that...
I loved it. I didn't have the feeling of being transplanted Californian or anything. They don't get that much bad weather in Newport, Rhode Island. It's moderate because of the ocean. And we got snow once in a while.
So you actually have seen 2 presidents, I think, in person.
Yes.
One we saw together, JFK, and the other was...
Eisenhower.
Tell us about that.
Boy, you have a great memory. When I was in Rhode Island, allied duty, and there were 7 of us who had the duty, who were already assigned to the base, was being port control officer. And so basically we were in charge of the port it was weekends always. And you just rotated. So every 4 weeks or so I'd get the duty. And in those days there was a presidential yacht, and Eisenhower was aboard it, and they all named it after someone in their family. In his case, it was named the Barbary Ann. You can look it up, tradition. And that was one of his granddaughters. And a top secret message came, and that was another one of your responsibilities because you were cleared for top secret in the job. For him, I don't know what it was because I wasn't allowed to open it, just had to carry it. And then I carried it over to the Barbary Ann. And I started to give it to the officer of the day on the boat. He was another naval officer. In fact, I knew him. He said, "Hey, this is a chance for you to see the president. I want you to deliver it to him personally." It was in the summer, obviously, because he was there on vacation. I was in my summer whites, and I was not watching where I was going because I was looking to see a glance if I could actually see the back of his bald head. Sure enough, just about the time I saw him, I slipped and fell. And there was even though it was a very clear, clean ship, as you can imagine, I happened to pick a dirty spot. And so I was kind of leery about seeing former General Eisenhower with a dirty uniform on, but I masked it in such a way, and he never commented about it if he noticed it. So the extent of our dialogue was, especially for you, Mr. President, and he took and thanked me, and I saluted him, and I left.
Did you have to salute him when you first saw him, too?
Yes.
Okay. So that was you were only there just a couple of minutes?
Yes, but I got to meet and talk to, albeit one sentence, the president. Didn't even occur to me to get his autograph or anything like that. And then ironically, that was in Newport, Rhode Island, ironically, you and I had just been married a couple of years. We were on vacation back east, and you and I together, you noticed it, driving around in Newport, Rhode Island. We were on the way to Maine. Saw Jackie and Jack Kennedy and another couple swimming. We didn't see them swimming. We saw them leaving the private beach that they would go to in Newport.
Bailey's Beach? Bailey's Beach,
good memory again. And they came out of there, and you spotted the Secret Service guy because it was, I think, because it was a hot summer day and he had a suit on, by the gate to Bailey Beach, and thought something was up, and we both knew from reading the paper or whatever that he was in town. So you encouraged us to stop, and sure enough, we waited and saw them drive out. And something like this never would have happened, but the president was driving his own convertible. Jackie was sitting in the seat with him, and the other couple was in the back seat.
Yeah. Was that a big thrill?
Big thrill.
And then how much?
Well, especially big thrill in that this was in, as I recall, July or August. It was sometime in the summer.
September, I think.
Was it September?
Yeah.
And the following November, he was assassinated.
Yeah. They were good looking, weren't they? I
Very
mean, they were
good.
I thought they were better looking than they seemed than you in the pictures. So okay, so
Very
then
handsome couple.
all right, so that now you're out of the service, and what happens?
I came back to California, went to grad school, started grad school at Claremont Grad School, and which I never dreamed that I could get into. It's amazing, and there's a moral here for whoever's watching, especially younger kids. Dream big, you might realize them. It's a very tough school to get into, and I was very lucky to have very good professors there. And you and I got married. We were engaged my last year or so in the Navy, and your first year or so in teaching. And we got married that July, after I got out of the Navy in February.
And then you taught in there somewhere.
Yes, I taught summer school. It was teacher training, and my little brother happened to be in the class because he was between his sophomore and junior year, and he was taking American History Advanced, meaning college prep kind. And I was assigned to his teacher as my master teacher at your and my alma mater, and my little brother's alma mater, Pomona High. In fact, a number of people in our family's alma mater, Pomona High. So I taught that summer under Bill Selke, a fabulous teacher, and it was, again, another lucky circumstance. And then I ended up getting a job teaching in high school.
So where did you teach?
Chino High School.
For how long?
5 years.
You taught there for 5 years?
Yes.
They gave
and
you
you were teaching in various elementary schools in Pomona at that time.
They gave you, I remember they gave you that you coached something too.
I coached swimming, and believe it or not, they begged me to do it, so I did it for one season. I was the assistant ends coach for the football team. I didn't do much except carry around water bottles. And then I also announced football games. All of these were perks that you could earn a few extra bucks doing. But I loved coaching swimming. And I had a lot of the same kids in my history classes.
Yeah. Tell me about the day that that Kennedy was, I think it was Kennedy that was assassinated, and who told you?
Isn't it amazing that something like that, your memory is, what the thing you really remember. I don't remember a lot of really pointed things about that day other than what an eerie feeling it was. But when I first heard, one of my not very academic students was Roxanne Rackley. And Roxanne always had her little transistor radio peeled to her ear. And after a couple of days of this in class and me taking it from her, I told her the next time that I took it from her was the last time she'd see it. And because she tried to sneak it behind her beehive hairdo. And so I was walking between classes in the morning. My memory is about 10 o'clock our time or so. And Roxanne came up bawling, tears just gushing down her cheek. And she held up her little transistor radio, which was big cat's meow in those days, and said, I heard on this. And then she hugged me and told me the president had been shot. And he was in Dallas.
Yeah. Well, do you think the kids was it pretty sad around there, or just business as usual?
Very sad. They sent the kids home early, which was a wise move. And I'm sure you had the same memory at the same time. It was the eeriest feeling driving home. It was about a 5-mile, maybe 10-minute drive to where we lived in Pomona. And it was just eerie. It was so quiet. Everyone was driving much below the speed limit.
Yeah, it was bad. It was awful. And then 3 days of just watching it.
Yes.
So I want to loop back to your high school career for just 1 second. Who was your favorite teacher?
Our English teacher. Her name, when I had her, was Jeppesen. Ada Jeppesen. Phenomenal teacher. Really inspiring, and made you work your buns off. But boy, did you learn a lot from her. including a lot of in-depth stuff about Shakespeare that was on a level with what I learned a couple of years later when I took it at college at UCLA.
So, and you weren't the kind of guy that fought a lot, right? But you had one major fight. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
You mean physical fight?
Yeah. Both you and Denny, I think.
Yes, we got jumped.
Yeah. By whom?
Dick Weiss
Why?
and Jack, I can't remember Jack's last name.
Bluthman?
Bluthman, yes. Jim's little brother, right? Well, I dated and took to a dance Dick Weiss's girlfriend. And he did.
What was her name?
Mary Teal.
Right.
God, what a memory you have. And I said, poor Dennis, guilt by association if there ever was it. We're walking home from someplace and this Dick Weiss's car pulls up and they jump out of the car and come over and start beating the crap out of both of us. I must say, Dennis did better against Jack than I ever did against Dick. And he left me, my last memory was hanging from the first top part of a chain link fence.
Who saved you? Do you even remember who saved you?
No. I should, but...
Okay, so what if you were going to think back about what is your biggest regret in life?
Gosh, that's a big question.
You don't actually have to answer that.
Okay. I don't mean this to be sad. It isn't sad.
It's not written in stone, it's just on video.
Okay.
Forever.
My biggest regret in life is that I didn't remain a teacher.
Wow. Yeah. Is that
Best job I ever had.
It is the best job, isn't it? And what's the biggest thing other than marrying me and having children and and having grandchildren and all that? What is the best thing that you could? I mean, the best thing about your life, the thing that you are happiest about.
Well, after good friends, and I've been blessed in that regard too. I had a lot of good friends, some of whom I still have from high school days. I'd have to say, learning a lot from great teachers. I really think I was blessed with being in the right place at the right time to get a really good education. And it does make your life a lot more pleasant when you know more.
Yeah, it does. So what is the most fun thing that you do right now?
That's a difficult question to answer. Exercise, I really think. Be it walking the dog or playing tennis when I do it more actively, or going to the gym or whatever. And being relevant, just trying to stay in touch with what's going on in the world.
Okay, and what's the thing that you dread the most? Oh, never mind, don't even answer that. That's not good. That's not good. So you mentioned the dog. Maybe we'd like to see the dog right now. Hey, Buster, come here.
Here, dog. Here, Buster. Buster. Buster, where are you?
He's very slowly coming down the stairs.
Come on, Buster.
Call him, Bruce.
Come here. Come on. He minds well, as you can hear.
Yes. Tell him, lie to him. Tell him you're going to go for a walk.
Come here. Come on here. You were sound asleep, weren't you? Come here. Camera. You love the camera.
Okay, all right, I need to know, you're famous for your car. You're not famous for how many dogs you've had, but you're famous for your cars. Name your cars. How many cars have we had?
In our married life, something between 40 and 50 cars. Isn't that ludicrous?
Yeah, so name your, 5 favorites.
Your second white Beamer. Mm-hmm.